And thank you for being here. This is an important topic and an important day. And my name is Mark Giroux. I am the parent of a young woman who receives services in this area. And I am a grateful parent. I am so grateful to all of you who are here today. I'd like to begin by introducing Amy Howard, the Chief Executive Officer at Achieve. Achieve is a chapter of the ARC New York and provider of services to individuals with intellectual, developmental, and other disabilities in Broome, Shenango, and Tioga counties. And they have been a proud member of this community for 64 years. Amy.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Hi, Mark.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Mark.
Want to give a special shout out this morning to our direct support professionals. I see many familiar faces in the crowd today. I see you. Many of you may know or may not know that I started out my career about 30 years ago as a direct support professional, and I just share that with you today because I want you to know that I understand the important role you play in our organizations, and that you are not only caregivers to the individuals we support, but you're medication administrators. You provide personal care on a daily basis. You help with recreation. You provide friendship and love and care and support for the individuals that we serve. I appreciate you, and I'm very proud to stand before you as part of an advocacy effort here today. So welcome all. My name is Amy Howard, and I am very grateful to be able to serve as CEO for Achieve here in Binghamton, New York. It's our pleasure to join fellow colleagues and fellow chapters of the ARC New York family, other local provider agencies, legislators and dignitaries, family members, individuals served and supported by our organization, and of course, our wonderful direct support professionals. We call today on the passage of the Better Jobs, Better Care Act fully funded. And we also are advocating for New York State and our newly inaugurated Governor, Kathy Hochul, to take a good hard look at the workforce issues that face our provider organizations today. The issues we're facing with this workforce crisis didn't just happen overnight. They're actually a decade-long series of issues, funding gaps that have transpired over time. And they're the product of years of chronic underfunding for supports and services that directly impact the lives of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities across New York State, but also across our great nation. This lack of funding has led to stagnating wages and has made it increasingly more difficult to compete against other industries, and also for us to be able to retain our workers. As our workforce declines, this puts organizations like Achieve in the position of having to make some very difficult decisions. This year alone, coming out of the pandemic, it's been very, very difficult for us to return our programming to pre-COVID occupancy levels. And that is at the detriment of the individuals we support and serve and their families. We just simply don't have enough staff to be able to provide all of the services that are wanted and needed in this community. Sister chapters have shared their stories about having to close programs, about having to combine the residences from 2 houses into 1, just simply so they have enough staff to cover their shifts. That is the environment in which we are operating our businesses here today. Longer-term staff in residences who have often established deep and meaningful relationships with the individuals who live in them are finding opportunities for employment elsewhere. They're uprooting lives and schedules for the individuals that they support on a daily basis in our programs. Staff, after working 12 to 16-hour shifts in our residences, are left exhausted at the end of the day and worrying about the safety of the individuals who reside in their programs. Staff are working 2 to 3 jobs just to be able to make ends meet and to be able to provide food to their families. These workforce shortages are dangerous, They are scary and they are disruptive to growth for organizations like ours. But most of all, and most importantly, these shortages have the direct consequence of preventing those in care from receiving supports and services that enable them to live the highest quality of life imaginable. And that, my friends, is our core responsibility. Many of us are in this job not just for a paycheck, but because we're aligned with the mission of our organizations. And we take it on as a great responsibility to be able to assist and support individuals that we serve to be able to live their very, very best lives. The individuals we support are some of our community's most capable, beautiful, and deserving individuals, and our workforce is comprised of some of the most compassionate, caring, and dedicated people that I have ever met in my career. The individuals that we support deserve better, and the workforce that we employ deserves better. They deserve not to be forgotten. That is why we're here today to call upon Congress to pass the Better Jobs, Better Care Act with the full $400 billion in home and community-based services funding included. It's time to stop the cuts, and those of you providers here know that we've taken on some very substantial cuts to our residential funding. For Achieve, it's over $500,000 annualized, and that is unacceptable. It is time to raise the DSP, direct support professional wages, and to fund the future of services for the intellectual and developmentally disabled programming. It's time to do better, and it's time to make sure that our leaders are hearing our voices. Thank you all so very much for joining us for this very important rally today. And it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, a very good friend of Achieve and a longtime supporter of our organization, Senator Fred Akshar.
Thank you. Can we give Amy Howard a big round of applause? An amazing CEO who is doing remarkable work. Amy, thank you for being such a good friend to not only me, but to this community and everybody who works for Achieve. Who is a direct care worker, just by a show of hands? How about putting our hands together for these dedicated professionals? Now, today's message really is simple. It really is. And Amy, actually, I'm sorry that we're here again today having a very similar conversation that we had a couple of years ago about the importance of funding, the importance of taking care of those direct support workers that are doing a very, very important job. The DSPs that are here, I have a message. It's pretty simple. You represent the very best in compassion and dedication to serving families and individuals who need it most. It takes a special kind of person to serve the very complex needs of our community's most vulnerable. And you are the backbone of an entire segment in our community. You're also the very heart of this community and communities across this great state. And quite frankly, it is time that New York started treating you like that. The reality is this, is that the jobs that you have, they're not minimum wage jobs. They're not. They're far from it. But budget proposal after budget proposal has repeatedly forgot and outright rejected your existence and your importance. And to what end? Because the reality is that we are losing very, very good people that are doing these jobs. And those in charge in Albany have consistently walked away from direct care workers. And to Amy's point, that in fact is unacceptable. So who does that hurt? It hurts the workers, all of you, because you're forced to leave a field in which you love. You're forced to leave the people that you care about because you have to Amy's point, provide for your own family. You have to make ends meet. It hurts the families of individuals who are unable to get the services that they need. And ultimately, it hurts the very community in which we live. Because when individuals don't have the supports that they need, It forces them into other fields, whether it be the healthcare field, the law enforcement field, corrections, none of which are appropriately staffed to take care of those particular issues. So I am proud to stand with all of the people up here today. I'm proud to stand with all of you, as I have throughout my entire tenure in elected office, to say this. Governor Hochul, she's brand new. She has to understand that we in fact are facing a crisis, and the answer is simple. As we go through the next budget process to ensure that the funding is where it needs to be. This is not complicated. All the governor and those in charge in Albany have to do is listen. Listen to the people who are here today and do what is right. Thank you all, and God bless.
It is my pleasure to introduce Barbara Brown, who is a direct support professional in an HCA, which stands for Helping Celebrate Abilities, Individualized Residential Alternative, an IRA. She is also special to me because she takes care of my daughter. Barbara?
Hi, everybody. Bear with me, I've never made a speech in my life. My name is Barbara Brown, or as Mark said, Barbara Ganoush, named from his daughter. I've been a DSP for about 13 years now. How many DSPs are here today? Can you raise your hands? So you'll understand this. My daughter got married this weekend, and I wore long sleeves and sweat to death because of my DSP wounds. Usually your body's covered with, I call them DSP wounds, bruises, like 90% of your body at times. There are times people have asked me if I've been in an accident, and I say, no, I work in a group home. So do we as DSPs deserve more money? We provide services so that they can work and thrive in the community with their peers and their families. We build relationships and earn their trust. They know we have their backs. It takes way more than patience and understanding. It takes empathy, teaching, nursing, caring, chauffeuring, counseling, feeding. You learn to know your individuals inside and out, what to expect for them and what they expect from us. No 2 days are ever the same in a group home. Without us, most of them would be in institutions, and no one deserves that. What a DSP goes through in one day can be exhausting. Just the other day, I was spit on, slapped, kicked, screamed at, and called every bad word you can imagine, and then had a fire extinguisher thrown at me, but thank God her aim was off. The emotional toll it can take on you is beyond belief. I was working at another house years ago, and all the individuals went home for the Christmas holiday except for one young man. And I got to sit there with him and watch him cry all day. Well, it bothered me a lot. So I thought, okay, let's see. I called my supervisor and asked her, could I take him home with me for Christmas Day? Well, we were a little concerned because he could become quite agitated at times. But I really wasn't that concerned because I knew my individual. Well, she said yes. And the next morning when I picked him up, to see how happy he was the best gift I got that Christmas. So we don't always work from 9 to 5. Sometimes we work around the clock, or for days on end, like the flood back in 2011. I never got to go home, change my clothes, bathe, see my own house and my own kids for 3 days. Most of the DSPs in my agency work 60 to 80 hours in a 2-week period, if not more. One week period, if not more. Not only for the overtime that they need in their checks to survive, because we have a shortage of DSPs. There are so many other higher paying jobs, why would they want to be a DSP? 2 years ago I went out for surgery. I was not supposed to go to work for 12 weeks, but I had to go back in 7 because I was falling behind in my bills. My regular paycheck, which was my sick time, without overtime was killing me. I didn't have enough to cover everything for basic housing, car payment, insurance, food, and utilities. And working that much overtime at my age is sad. So why do I stay? Because seeing how you make a difference in someone's life is so rewarding. Hearing them say a word for the first time, or watching them learn to walk, or taking someone for their first amusement park ride and seeing the joy in their face, or how your simple hug can calm a behavior. Not everyone could be a DSP. We're special.
I feel sorry for our next speaker. It's a tough act to follow, but I think you can do it. Assemblyman Brian Miller has represented Assembly District 101 since 2016. His district includes parts of Herkimer, Otsego, Delaware, Ulster, Sullivan, Orange, and Oneida County. Please welcome Assemblyman Miller.
Thank you, everyone. And that was a great speech. So I review the do some speeches for I want to thank everyone for being here today. It's a beautiful day. This is a great message that we need to get out. For far too long, New York has not devoted enough time or resources into sustaining essential support and services for residents with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Direct support workers aim to assist people in realizing their full potential, as well as becoming integrated and engaged in their community. This is not only crucial for the individuals who receive this support, but for their families and loved ones as well. Quality care such as this often goes unnoticed, when it is literally a lifeline for so many New Yorkers and their families. For these reasons and so many more, it is critical for us to stand up for direct support workers. I had the tremendous opportunity to visit the ARC in Oneida, Lewis counties last week to see firsthand the tremendous work they do. It is truly inspiring to see how many lives you all have changed for the better. And again, this is not just the individuals you are directly working with, it's their families, friends, loved ones, and anyone they come in contact with. So it is disheartening to see that the direct care industry is in crisis with so many facilities and agencies understaffed and workers not being paid properly for their services. This also leaves some of New York's most vulnerable to pay the price. Currently, there is an average annual turnover rate of 45%, and the statewide vacancy rate is increased of 75% to pre-pandemic levels. The needs of individuals with disabilities and their families are not being met with those who are helping and are being overworked and underpaid. This is simply unacceptable and something must change. The first step should be to reestablish the living wage for the direct support workers. We have pushed for this time and time again and will continue to do so until we are heard. We must also create a standard occupational code to help agencies better understand the workforce and fix issues that arise. We must create a statewide SUNY CUNY direct support professional credit and career ladder program and professionalize this career path to help increase access to different opportunities. I promise to do everything I can in Albany to support the direct support workforce by continuing to advocate on your behalf. Enough is enough. We need support for direct support workers. Thank you, everyone. Let's keep up the great fight.
Has anyone seen Dave Pisagno just trolling around there? He's just going back and forth.
Assemblyman Joe Angelino has represented Assembly District 122 since 2020. His district is composed of parts of Delaware, Broome, Shenango, and Otsego counties. He's a member of the Committee on People with Disabilities. Please welcome Assemblyman Angelino.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here on this beautiful day. And I want to welcome my colleague, Assemblyman Miller, to the beautiful 122nd District at Seningo Park. Thank you to Achieve, specifically Amy, Howard, and Preston for inviting me. I'm a new assemblyman, and I'm lucky enough that I was put on a brand new committee that you just heard. I'm on the People with Disabilities Committee, which has never been a standing committee in the New York State Assembly. I'm happy to be there now. Also, thanks to Achieve, Amy, and Preston, I was able to visit every direct care home in their district, starting in Tioga County, Broome, and up into Shenango. I went to each home, and everybody out there who raised their hand because they're a DSP, I was in your home, and I stopped, I saw what you do, and it's something that not everyone can do. I know I don't have that caring gene to take care of people the way you can. You're a special breed of person in our community, and you're taking care of those in our community who need your help. And you shouldn't have to make a decision whether you're going to have a living wage by perhaps working in a fast food restaurant with high school students who have never been in the workforce, or doing the skilled work that you do, for example, tending to a person's feeding tube. Those just are not compatible. You deserve the living wage that the compensation that your job requires. We shouldn't have to have the competition of people having to move from place to place. As a member on the People with Disabilities Committee, I want you to know I'm doing what I can. I have great faith that this act is going to pass at the federal level, because that's what happens when politicians get involved in people's wages. And this compression of wages has caused this. It's easy for a politician to mandate how the private sector pays, but when it comes time to dole out the federal and state money, they're a little slow on the trigger to try and get that taken care of. And I'm going to do what I can so that you folks can get a decent wage that you deserve. Again, thank you very much for coming to the 122nd District. I appreciate everybody being here, and thank you very much.
Kevin Burns is a direct service professional with Able To in Elmira.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here in the spirit of improving conditions and recruitment for DSPs across New York's southern tier. My name is Kevin Burns, and I've been a DSP with Able To in Elmira, New York, since I graduated from Mansfield University with my Bachelor's of Psychology in December of last year. In this time, I've learned so much about myself, my degree, and about what being a DSP is all about. I would like to share some of those experiences with you, with a focus on the challenges of this work, as well as some potential solutions. They say it takes a village to raise a child, but this adage applies to every aspect of our lives, including this field. It takes people of all backgrounds, traits, and niche skills, people who possess empathy, dedication, and emotional intelligence to do the work we do. They are not the kinds of people that you can draw in on the promise of wages less than that of most retail workers, especially when you consider that those necessary skill sets can change depending on the agency, the program, or the individuals you work with. One thing remains constant about this line of work, however. The people we want to recruit need to be role models who can work to improve the quality of life for those we serve. As a college graduate doing this work, I would love to see more opportunities for college grads in this field. Many of my fellow psych majors at Mansfield even interned with agencies in Pennsylvania that do DSP work. But with crushing student debt, $15 an hour isn't likely to cut it for most. We need protections and opportunities for advancement that will draw in workers who possess these skills and traits and keep them around. And we need to be recognized as our own field of professionals to be able to work effectively. To that end, we must create an occupational code that makes it easier for state and federal agencies to assist workers in this field. We aren't asking for free handouts here. Let me be clear on that. We are asking for the bare minimum required to do this work, a minimum which has not yet been met. I've learned so much through this work, but one of the most important lessons I've learned is how underappreciated this field is. If we're going to keep this career around and make it into just that, a career, we need big, radical changes to the way the industry is viewed and operated, not just for the benefit of our employees, but for the people we serve as well. We need to make direct support work a coded profession to retain employees. We need to work with educational facilities to make DSP work a viable option for graduates and open more opportunities for training and advancement. Most importantly, we need to stop the cuts and raise the rates so that we can fund the future. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite Harris Weiss up here, who is from the office of Assemblywoman Donna Lepardo.
Thank you all for being here today. The Assemblywoman regrets that she couldn't be here. Obviously, I am not her, but she asked me to share some brief words from her. This has been an ongoing and urgent concern for many years. Individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their dedicated staff who work with them deserve the highest degree of respect. Unfortunately, they have been marginalized and undervalued, resulting in staffing shortages, low morale, and more. We must continue our strong advocacy on behalf of DSPs now so as we craft next year's budget, we can get funding to where it matters. Thank you all for your advocacy, for being here today, and also bringing us together on this unified front. Thank you.
I'd now like to introduce Lisa Cost, the Executive Director of HCA, Helping Celebrate Abilities, an agency that's been providing services to the disabled population since 1947. And she is joined today by the Residential Director of the agency, Cheryl Smith.
Hi everyone, and thank you Mark, and thank you to everybody that came out today to support our direct support professionals. We really appreciate you, not just one day, every single day of the year. So let's give everyone a big round of applause. How do you adequately describe the role of the DSP in the lives of the people that we provide services to? Yes, there are all the things that we put in a job description, but there are so many more things that we just can't capture. The DSPs often come to work, especially during these past uncertain times, not knowing if they're going to get to go home at the end of their shift because they don't know if there's going to be anybody there to take their place. So they aren't able to go home to their families, and they're staying at work to take care of the people that they serve. The DSPs include now program administrators, clinical staff, and the house managers because there aren't enough people. And these DSPs become like family. They're the lifeblood of the people that we serve. When staffing shortages require us to move staff to different homes, the continuity of care is disrupted for the people we serve. People's lives are disrupted. Last week we had our DSP appreciation event, and it provided an example of this disruption. It was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. As one of our staff members arrived at the event, Nelson, a group of the guys that he used to work with jumped up and quickly moved towards him with smiles and open arms. They were so excited and so happy to see him, and he was just as excited and happy to see them. It was heartwarming. Then one of the guys said to him, "Please come back to our house." He had to say he couldn't because he was needed somewhere else. It is heartbreaking to see these bonds that have been formed broken because we simply just do not have enough staff. We as a state need to figure out how we can do better, how we can consistently do better, so we are not faced with these situations and we are able to fairly compensate the people who take care of the people. And I'd like to introduce Cheryl Smith, the Director of Residential Services, who's going to say a few more words.
So I've been in the field for 28 years. I've worked with HCA for 28 years. And during that time, I've had the opportunity to meet and serve some wonderful people and their families. Most of those same people and their families continue to receive their supports in our residential division. During that time, it's taken some amazing direct support staff to help each person grow and live a meaningful, productive life. It's staff, like Barb, who really make a difference every day. Staff have the ability to build relationships. They need to have the skill to interpret the needs and wants that someone who can't verbalize it for themselves easily what they mean. They have to have bravery to advocate for someone else, and they have to have compassion to provide the most personal daily care with dignity and respect. It saddens me that there are only a handful of direct care staff that work for us that have the longevity of myself or someone like Barb. Most of the letters of resignation that we receive at the agency indicate and they thank us for the opportunity they have had to make a difference in someone's life. They thank us for the ability to grow, and they really appreciate the relationships they have with the individuals, and they indicate how much they're going to miss them. But they need to move on to a career that can provide support for their family while working only a typical 40-hour work week. We need to make the important job of DSP. Every speaker before me, and I'm sure those after me, have all highlighted the important, difficult roles that the direct support professional has, and yet we have not made it a career. It needs to be a career that is recognized for not only the importance, but also with the salary that is commensurate with it. Thank you.
I am delighted to say that we have two self-advocates who have agreed to speak with us today. If they would come forward, David Boncavage and James Russell. They both live in Iris and receive day-have services.
Well, I was just saying we need more staff to help us out, and I guarantee that something that can be done about it. I'm grateful for that, and things will happen soon. And just stop the funding too. I'm serious about that too.
Staff is a good staff at my brother's street house. Sometimes they wanna take them away. It hurts my feelings. Go away. She might come back. And we should get more staff to help us out so we can go more outings and do more things for our house. And the staff should get more money and more good felt. I can't say that word. Can you help me out? More, I can't say it. No, more, film, I can't say that word. I can't get it out. Yeah, more benefits and more benefits for them so they can get more money, so they won't lose their paychecks and everything else for Broad Street House. And and they need lots of raises for Broad Street House. They work so darn hard. Annie works hard, Alex works hard, Serena works hard, and Jess works hard. All those people. Come on. So much.
And I'd like to introduce John Kohina, a family advocate and one of the founding board members of Able To.
Good morning, my name is John Kohina. I've been asked to share my perspective on the current crisis. I appreciate the opportunity to do so. To begin with, this is my perspective that I bring here today. I'm a sibling of two sisters with developmental disabilities. Their names are Kathy and Kristen. They both have a diagnosis of cerebral palsy. Also, I'm a person who has provided direct support in the care of my sisters within our family home during the first 22 plus years of my life. It is from this perspective that I understand the meaning of the issues facing us today. The issues being discussed today obviously matter to me. I'm not going to go into great detail. The folks here ahead of me have really covered it extremely well. All I would like to say is, number one, I know from my own direct personal experience that direct care work of the disabled is very demanding, both emotionally as well as physically. Also, I would say that the direct care work of the disabled requires a high degree of skill. And again, I know that as well from trial and error of helping my parents take care of both of my sisters when there were no residential services locally for families to buy into. And the bottom line is this: only quality workers can provide this type of service. And if we are unwilling to invest in the training of people, both before and during the hiring process, and then pay them a commensurate wage and benefit package, there will be no workers. And the significance of that is, in the long run, no workers will equal no services and no programs. Now, where's this all leading to? Certainly, you can draw the conclusion that the lack of funding in New York State being addressed to support the people with disabilities is an existential threat on one level to their own personal well-being. And my point regarding that is this: if you need highly skilled people and you like highly skilled people to deal with both medical and safety issues, what happens when there is an issue? What is going to be the outcome, potential outcome? The thought scares me. On a much larger issue, I believe it's also an existential threat to the very existence of not-for-profit agencies. Insufficient resources now and in the future will ultimately lead to the closure of many agencies. When this occurs, I ask you, who will be providing the services and the programs needed by individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities? Our families with loved ones with disability, are we going to be told again, like my family was told, well, put them in a state institution and just forget about them? And that was the advice given to my parents back in 1957, 58. All right? And my parents had a choice, and they made a choice. They thought that advice was unacceptable. That's why agencies like Able To exist today, and ARC, you name it. Now, what's the potential solution? Really simple. Stop the cuts, raise the rates, and obviously fund the future. The money is available now in Albany to support these services at a quality level. Let's do so. My final thoughts. You know, my parents never expected me to play the role of parent in their absence. However, they did ask me if I would advocate for Kathy and Christy by fighting for whatever, and I will quote, as my dad said, whatever society was willing to provide them. And of course, my response was absolutely yes. That is why I'm here today. That's why I've served on the Able Board for the last 30+ years. Now, as their brother, I would be glad to take care of my sisters once again. However, I recognize that won't ever happen. Why? Well, first, I lack the essential skills, the mental energy, and the physical strength needed to support their emotional and physical well-being. Second, at age 63, I recognize that my remaining time with both my sisters is probably limited. I understand, as did my parents, that eventually someone other than me would have to provide for their needs. That is why it is so important to resolve these issues that have been discussed today, and they are resolvable in good ways. Remember this, that the agencies that support the persons with disability are the only games in town. If they cease to exist, there will be no one to take their place. That is why, again, we must cut the stop the cuts, raise the rates, and make sure we fund the future. Thank you for your time.
To be clear, all of these agencies are state funded. Yeah, they're voluntary provider agencies. Yeah, gotcha.
And Lisa Alger is going to come and speak to us. Lisa.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, everyone. Can you hear me out there? I think I have the task of bringing this thing home. I think I'm the last in line. Second to last, all right. Well, thank you all again for being here. And I know the voices you've heard already are bringing home the reality to all of us that our support system for those with IDD here in New York State is in danger of collapse. With 1 in 4 positions being vacant, those 3 remaining are called on to pull double and triple shifts for days on end, and to falter often, as any of us would under such strain, by making mistakes, never knowing if or when exactly your shift is going to end, because there's no one else to come. So I'm here today in the role of executive director in a field I've worked for in over 30 years, and as Amy and many other execs across the state started as a direct support professional. But I'm also here in another role. In November of last year, a loved one I am guardian for, who lives in a group home dependent on DSPs, was diagnosed with a rare and fatal form of cancer. Staff have scrambled to transport her to appointments, to advocate with doctors throughout this pandemic, and to help her recover from multiple surgeries in the midst of this COVID. They administer meds, they do wound care for her, they monitor and implement nutritional supplements, they respond to her confusion, they have lifted her from the falls she has taken, read her to sleep, helped her bathe and dress, and generally soothe her through the pain of all the restless nights. Just 1 month after that diagnosis came, fast food workers began making $14.50 an hour as their minimum wage, while simultaneously, the rate sustaining the skilled workforce that she, I, and all her housemates are relying on went to a minimum wage of just $12.50 an hour. At the same time, OPWDD announced their intention to continue their pursuit of a vacancy rate cut, essentially telling us that they shouldn't have to pay to help us guarantee the bed for people like my sister with extended hospital stays or time out of residence with their families. So, as a grieving sister and CEO, it makes me ask, what kind of society are we? If my drive-through morning coffee is really valued at $2 an hour more than the skilled work of staff supporting her as she comes to the end of her life, did we do that on purpose? Is it really going to be okay with us? Or is it a mistake driven by misguided policy that we can and should seek to fix? A dozen beds remain empty in my residential program because I frankly just don't have the staff to fill them safely. And because those cuts to rates surrounding vacancies continue to be held over our heads, we join almost 50% of the other providers forced to consolidate and reduce our services. We have gone from serving 80 persons in an on-site day service
to just 30 people. On average, I have 20 applicants a week to fill double that amount of positions, and every one of my administrative team are engaged in some form of direct care at the neglect of other vital duties. So here's the bottom line. As an exec, an advocate, and a guardian, COVID is no longer my biggest concern. Instead, it's the fear that houses may close to everyone because the system thinks mortgages and salaries don't have to be paid when someone ends up in the hospital or wants to be included in their family vacation. So I'm here with everyone else, calling on our new governor, on OPWDD, and all our policymakers to stop the cuts that are so punitive and unnecessary they leave bruises that will not heal, to raise the rates so providers here and across the whole state have the ability to attract those competent DSPs with a wage that demonstrates value beyond the minimum, and to fund the future by including nonprofit providers in the statutory cost of living adjustment that has been withheld from us for more than a decade. Policymakers, you can and you should. Thanks, everyone.
And we have another DSP who would like to speak to us, Shante Smith. Shante?
Hi guys, I'm a little nervous. I tend to be an emotional speaker. My name's Shante Smith. I've been working for Achieve for the last 17 years as a DSP. I enjoy working with our participants because I believe in the mission of helping people live their best lives possible. We are really the backbone of the organizations, especially the nonprofits. We're the unsung heroes, and we also wear many different hats. Our participants do not have families sometimes, and they depend on the DSPs for love, support, encouragement, help with maintaining employment, help with enjoying community integration. All the DSPs that worked through the COVID, I understand how hard it really was. Our individuals had such a hard time understanding what the COVID even meant, why they couldn't enjoy their community. Going through the drive-thru was a no, because we were so afraid that we were going to get COVID. This is something that we had to help our people understand. So instead of sitting around and moping about it, we decided to create meaningful days for our individuals. We created in-house restaurants, we created Hawaiian luau's, we created picnics in the backyard for 4th of July, water balloon fights. We really need to stay strong, and we need to advocate for this money. This money is very important for DSPs. I know that I have a hard time living on the wage that I earn, and I've been with Achieve for 17 years. Prior to that, with another agency for 4. We're losing good staff to factories. We're losing them to fast food restaurants. And I know life isn't fair, but us DSPs, we need a fair wage. And we need it sooner than later before we continue to lose more staff. Thank you guys. Thank you all. Honestly, lead by example, because our people matter and DSPs matter as well.
I want to thank Shante and all who spoke today. It means a great deal to us. Thank you for being here, but above all, we thank the DSPs. Now, after we're finished, for those of you in the media, I know any of these people would be willing to talk to you further and be interviewed. I hope all of you will get a handout so that you can take further action in advocacy. This is an important topic, and it's an important day. But because I'm the MC, I get to say one more thing. This is what I want to say. We all know first responders and the respect they've earned in our world. They deserve it. DSPs are not first responders. They are constant responders. Caring for people with special needs is relentless, and it's never ending. It burns families out. It challenges paid staff. DSPs save lives. People with disabilities live longer and richer lives because of DSPs. My daughter's almost 38 years old, but she needs constant care. I'm 66 and I am unlikely to outlive her. I have entrusted her very life to DSPs. To me, they are heroic. They save lives. They saved my daughter's, they saved mine, and our story can be multiplied thousands of times across New York State. DSPs work so hard. They should be well paid, and yet they are not even adequately paid. Their work is a high calling, but it's gotten harder in a time of pandemic. It was already hard, now it's worse. DSPs are not well paid, and we are losing them to other jobs. Their work is so important. Not everyone has the skill and the compassion it takes. We're losing them. This is a mistake. It's wrong, and it has to change. Now, my daughter visits us weekly from her group home. Last week, I was helping her get down some stairs. Although she is mobile, stairs can be very hard for her. I had her arm, and I promised I would help her and support her. And she answered in 3 words I am always going to remember. She said, "Hug me in." Hug me in. Those are personal words to me from my daughter, but they're symbolic words to all of us from people with disabilities. And they're symbolic words to all of us from those who care for them. Hug me in. Give the support and the help that's needed. We need to support and help those who work in the field of disability care. They're not first responders, they are constant responders. It is relentless work, it is hard work, and it is admirable work. They deserve better from us. We can do this. We can change this. And we must. Listen to me and listen to my daughter. Hug them in. Thank you.